They called the cops on me before I'd even finished opening my first box. Imagine that, standing in front of your brand new home certificate of ownership in your hand, and suddenly you're being described to 911 as a trespasser. I thought buying this cabin in the mountains would mark the happiest day of my life. Instead, it turned into the most humiliating, nerve-wracking showdown I'd ever lived through. I was 38, an accountant who had finally managed to save enough to leave city apartments behind. That little wooden cabin represented 15 years of hard work. The air was crisp, the pine trees swayed in silence, and for once I thought, this is mine. My moving truck was parked neatly in the gravel, and the very first box I carried down contained my grandmother's fragile ceramic set. I was savoring the moment until the sound of a door slam echoed like a gunshot. She came striding across the driveway like a storm in khakis and a stiff blonde haircut. Clipboard clutched to her chest phone, already recording. Monica Reeves. She didn't even bother with hello. She crouched, snapping photos of my boxes like she'd stumbled upon a crime scene. I tried to smile, introduced myself, even held out my ownership certificate. I'm Daniel Brooks, just moving in today. She didn't even glance at my paperwork. Anyone can fake documents these days, she sneered. Then she lifted her phone, hit speaker, and I heard the dispatcher 911. What's your emergency? My stomach dropped. Monica reported me as an illegal trespasser unloading hazardous containers. I couldn't believe it. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my grandmother's dishes. A couple of neighbors wandered over some filming, some whispering. I stood there, frozen, clutching my deed, wondering if I was crazy. Did I miss some obscure HOA rule? Was I actually breaking the law by moving into a house I just bought? 10 of the longest minutes of my life passed before the police cruiser wound its way up the mountain road. Monica waved like she was hailing a cab, beaming with triumph. I braced for cuffs. But then, twist-of-the-century Officer Carter stepped out, broke into a grin, and headed straight for me. Daniel Brooks. Long time, buddy. Haven't seen you since the charity fundraiser. He shook my hand, clapped me on the shoulder. His partner waved like we were old friends. Monica's smug look evaporated in an instant. I almost laughed from the sheer absurdity. One moment, I'm the neighborhood criminal, the next, I'm apparently the cop's favorite fundraiser guy. Carter inspected my documents, nodded approvingly, and congratulated me on the new cabin. Meanwhile, Monica sputtered about permits and community standards, her voice rising higher as the officers diplomatically explained there was no violation, no noise issue, no trespass. They warned her 911 was for real emergencies, not personal vendettas. She turned crimson. I should have felt vindicated, but instead I just felt the chill of knowing this woman wasn't done with me. And I was right. The next morning, a bright orange violation notice was slapped on my trash cans. Improper placement. Same cans, same pickup schedule as everyone else, yet only mine were tagged. Then came the flyers. Monica taped one to my porch. Non-compliant resident, proceed with caution, complete with a photo of my driver's license. I stared at it, heart pounding, thinking how the hell did she even get that? That week was relentless. She accused me of noise violations, unauthorized activity, even hinted my documents might be fraudulent. I stopped sleeping, pacing my new cabin at night, wondering if she could actually get me fined, evicted, maybe worse. I thought about selling, cutting my losses. I remember sitting on a half-unpacked couch, head in my hands, asking myself out loud, did I make the biggest mistake of my life moving here? But then came Julia Evans, soft-spoken a teacher who'd lived there a decade. She knocked on my door one evening and said quietly, tomorrow night's HOA meeting. You need to come. Don't let Monica own the whole story. A lot of us are tired of her, but nobody's stood up yet. Something in her calm steadiness lit a spark in me. If I'd spent 15 years balancing books and sniffing out shady numbers, maybe I could survive one power-hungry HOA president. The meeting was surreal. 20 residents sat in folding chairs. Monica stood at the podium with a poster board plastered in photos of my moving truck. Unauthorized commercial activity, she declared, laser pointer circling my U-Haul. People murmured, clearly unconvinced. When I walked in, Monica faltered but quickly regained her pose. She held up freshly printed regulations requiring 48-hour notice and an HOA supervisor for any move. I raised my hand. Can you show us the official meeting minutes where those rules were voted on, and the signatures approving them? Silence. She shuffled her papers, pale. That was my turning point. My voice steadied as I pressed further procedural audits, approval logs, signatures. Residents leaned in, murmuring. Finally, Monica slammed her hand on the podium. I'm the president. I make the decisions. Her voice cracked. The room stiffened. Then a retired lawyer in the front row stood. Actually, that's not how HOA governance works. Presidents don't create rules unilaterally. His calm certainty broke the dam. Residents started whispering about past grievances, unfair fines, petty harassment. The spotlight shifted. For the first time, Monica looked cornered. And still, she escalated. The following weekend, while neighbors helped me carry furniture, she stormed out with stacks of red flyers screaming, "Unauthorized moving activity in progress." She shoved them into people's hands, taped them to my door windshield, even passed them to my elderly neighbor, Mr. Patterson, who was literally just holding one end of my couch. The man blinked at the flyer, then at me, shaking his head. "This is the first time in 18 years I've ever been threatened with a fine for being neighborly." The crowd chuckled. Monica's eyes twitched, her grip slipping. But she wasn't finished. She filed a restraining order against me, claiming I'd threatened her leadership. The cops had to show up again this time, looking embarrassed as they handed me papers. Carter muttered off the record. "This is the most ridiculous filing I've seen in years. It won't last a day in court." He wasn't kidding. Along with the dismissal came something better, an official warning against Monica for misuse of emergency services. A permanent mark on her record. Meanwhile, Julia and others gathered signatures for a recall petition. When Carter saw the folder stuffed with pages of names, he nodded approvingly. This is how disputes are handled, through proper channels, not 911. That line alone was enough to make neighbors clap. By then, Monica's credibility was hanging by a thread. The recall vote was the climax. Thursday night, same clubhouse, but the mood was different, serious, determined. Ballots were counted openly, residents watching each slip. When Julia announced the result, the margin was undeniable. 27 for removal, only 4 against. Monica sat frozen in the front row. Her jaw clenched, eyes glassy. She stood slowly to read a prepared statement. "I apologize for inappropriate use of emergency services." Her voice trembled. Nobody clapped. Even her allies looked down at their hands. She gathered her papers, shoulders slumped, and walked out without a word. For the first time since I'd moved in, the room felt lighter. No cheers, no celebration, just relief. The reign of fear was over, and the so-called queen of the cul-de-sac had been dethroned by the very people she tried to control. And the lesson was, simple power built on intimidation only lasts until someone finally says no.